So all my friends would tell you it looks to them like I'm pretty much on vacation all the time because it's usually nice and sunny where I'm at. I'm getting to be a fair weather driver here. And I always have a pair of shorts with me and my swim goggles because I'm always aiming for a beach, okay?
Welcome to Six Figure Trucker, the podcast where we share advice on how to be successful in trucking and have fun while doing so. We'll share stories, news, and advice on how to earn six figures in trucking, and we'll speak to guys and gals that are already doing so. Let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. This is a format where we elevate and celebrate the drivers that make our company go round and round, and it's a time to look back and reflect on them. We got a special guest tonight joining us, Jim Fischer. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's snowy, but it's good.
Now, Jim is joining us from sunny, basking in the sun and the warm weather in South Dakota. Give us a lay of the land for real. What's it like up there?
Well, I would like to give you pictures of that. I was in sunny Texas yesterday, and today I just took a picture of my sister standing next to 4 feet of snow on the level by her front door.
Oh, my goodness.
And, it's pretty white here, actually.
4 feet of snow. And what was the temperature swing? Texas yesterday, 4 feet of snow today.
Yesterday was 63, I think, and today is 28. It'll get down lower tonight, but so temperature swing, that's relevant to where you're at.
Sure. I guess being a driver, you're adapted to that. I mean, you guys see, what happens naturally in swings and the areas you drive from and to. You see it yourself. How do you adapt to it?
Well, I try to travel fairly light, but I grew up in the north, so I have enough equipment to handle just about anything wherever I go, other than hauling heavy boots or something like that. But you go from the desert to the mountains this time of year. You're looking at 80 degrees in one place and 0 in another place. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Give us a rundown of your go bag.
Oh, my stuff to go. I carry a lightweight down jacket. That's what I wear. I've got a couple of long sleeve stuff so I can layer up. Mm-hmm. I've got a regular hat, and I got a stocking cap and gloves. And you might even have to layer up several times in the same trip. You don't even know. But then electronically, you got to have all the garb to just stay in touch with what's going on out there.
Gotcha. Now, let's talk a little bit about, kind of break it down, layering up. When you're in Driveaway transport, because of the situation where you can't you can't pack a suitcase. So you talk about layering up. Do you do that to stay comfortable when you're in the truck and you can easily shed some layers, add some layers? What's the thinking behind all that?
It depends on where you're going and how many times you're going to be getting in and out of the truck. I try to dress light and use the temperature control of the vehicle as much as I can, but you got to be ready when you get out to fuel, and you can go from bright and sunny to a whiteout and 4 inches of snow in short order. So you got to have everything with you and ready to go.
Now, have you ever been in a situation, I was just thinking about this. Let's say you've got a T-shirt, long sleeve shirt, light jacket, and you're in, we'll say for sake of discussion, South Dakota, and you got a whiteout coming. You're driving in South Dakota, and let's say it's a CNG unit, and it's going to take you 25, 30 minutes to fill up. Have you ever been freezing cold in a situation like that where you couldn't necessarily bring heavy wear clothing?
I was on my way to Arizona one time, and I was driving a bus, and I had stopped to visit some family along the way, and I was on a kind of a back road, and the vehicle broke down. I pulled over the side of the road. I did have cell signal, but the closest tow company was 2.5 hours away, and it was late at night. One of those, I don't normally drive at night, but I was getting on my way to where I was supposed to stay for the night, and I ended up waiting close to 5 hours for the tow truck to get there, and it was getting colder. The vehicle wouldn't run, so I had no heat. It was a transit bus that's not insulated because it's all glass, so the temperature drops pretty quick, and I didn't have any extra food or water or anything, and I called them at about 1 in the morning after sitting there for 4 hours, and I said, if they don't get here pretty quick, I'm going to be walking to the closest farmhouse. And they were there within the hour. But that was I had one other time. I was prepared, and I stopped to fuel up in Fargo, North Dakota. It was 28 below zero.
Oh, my goodness.
And I got an hour west of Fargo going to Montana, and the vehicle broke down. I limped it off fortunately for me, it limped off on a exit ramp where there was a truck stop, basically rolled down into their parking lot and sat there for 2 days till a tow truck came and got me.
Oh, my goodness. Well, at least there was a stop there, and you were uphill going down.
Yeah, exactly. An ounce of prevention is worth many, many, many pounds of cure, I can tell you that.
Sure.
So I've become a little bit seasoned at planning my trips, and I'm pretty good at dodging the bullet.
That's good to know. That is good to have that skill, too. Let's put it in reverse for a minute and go back to Arizona. Were you in northern Arizona? I'm picturing, I know from past experience, not in a truck, but being out in the desert. I mean, you see those 40-degree swings in a given day. You know, it's hot in the desert during the day, but at night it gets cool. Were you, what time of the year was it, and what part of Arizona were you in?
Well, I can tell you several trips I've been on, from Phoenix going up to Las Vegas or anywhere points north where you got to go up through Flagstaff, and you leave the desert and it's 85 degrees, and you get to Flagstaff and it's a whiteout. So I've been in that experience, and I'd rather be going the other way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind coming out of the snow if I know where I'm going is flat and warm. But another one that was bizarre was I was leaving Palm Springs going to San Francisco, and that route, if you go up to Barstow and go across that way, you go by Tehachapi, and I left Palm Springs about 90 degrees, and I got up there and it was a whiteout, and you could not even 15 miles an hour if you were lucky for about 10 miles till you got over that pass.
So you were like southeast of San Francisco at the time, where the
Yep,
whiteout
exactly.
happened? Yeah. Now, is that 5? Were you taking 5 up, or I was thinking Barstow?
Well, five is the grapevine that goes down to L.A. If you go from Bakersfield off of 5 straight east, that's Highway 58 that goes to Barstow.
Gotcha.
And Barstow is halfway between Ontario, California, and Las Vegas on 15.
And for CNG, it's one of the last stops for CNG until you get into that flood of CNG on the coast of California. Plenty of CNG there, but if you're going from west to east, you better just make a stop in Barstow.
My first drive job was transit buses from Minnesota to mostly either to the East Coast or West Coast, and they were all CNG. So for the last 5 years, I have mapped out in my head a pretty clear, where all the CNG stops are, and I know well enough that you better get it when you got it and fill your tank, because if you get to the next one and the pumps broke down and you got to go to the following one, you better have enough to go that extra 250 miles or whatever it is. So, and then there's the CNG app that you put on your phone, tells you where all those stations are. And there's many new ones coming online, by the way. I see them being built all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
For all the guys out there that have done any of the Amazon trucks, Amazon is upgrading their fleet to nearly all CNG right now. I've driven a pile of those.
You find a lot of manufacturers are doing that. You're listening to the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. Jim Fischer joining us. And Jim, wanted to kind of drill down on the CNG because you said what is so true. When you come to a CNG station, you want to fill up and do it often. Have you ever run into a problem where you've run out of CNG?
No, not ran out. I'm maybe not as dumb as I look on that. But one time I was going from Winslow, Arizona to Southern California, and you got the next stop is Williams, California, and after that is Lake Havasu,
right?
Then Barstow, and then LA and Ontario. And I filled up in Albuquerque.
Yep.
I got to, which I should have been able to go to Williams.
Yep.
I got to Williams and the pump was broke down. So I was already 150 miles past Winslow. So I either go back to Winslow or try to make it to Lake Havasu, another 150 miles. And the only blessing in that was it's mostly downhill.
Yeah.
And I got to Lake Havasu and I still had 800 pounds of pressure in there.
What kind of unit were you in?
A 60-foot transit bus.
Oh, okay. Because, we move a lot of different types of units here at Norton Transport. And one thing where drivers are, I guess, educating themselves on type of unit and range, for example, a garbage truck, which a lot of garbage trucks are CNG. Yeah. And, most of those, depending upon the diesel to gallon equivalent, you're looking at conservatively 300 to maybe 400 if you're going to push it.
We were never allowed to drive more than 400 miles in those transit buses without stopping and fueling. So our route had to go that way. I've driven now the Amazon semis, they do extremely well. They're better, but the garbage trucks, you don't want to push beyond 250. I mean, you better know that where you're going, the pumps are working. And a friend of mine recently got to a situation around in New Mexico where the station that he went to was closed, and he had to zigzag. And he called me, and I said, "You better go straight south and go to Amarillo because you're not going to make it to Albuquerque."
Because that's we've mapped out numerous routes, and I'm glad you brought that up because between Amarillo and Albuquerque, there's nothing. And it's like, you better top it off, go 3,600, 4,000, whatever your gauge, whatever your tanks will hold when you're in Amarillo, because you've got to hike to Albuquerque, and then from Albuquerque, you're okay.
Yeah, the only blessing there is if you make it past Moriarty, it's downhill all the way to the pumps at Albuquerque.
That's good to know. That's great knowledge. We're listening to Jim Fischer here on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. He's dropping some knowledge that only an experienced driver would know. Jim, how long have you been doing this?
I've been driving transport for just about 6 years.
Now, all of that Driveaway, or did you drive before? I know you've mentioned driving buses. Did you drive in another arena?
I worked specifically for a company that just transports buses.
Okay.
And I started with the trucks and everything else that Norton does just a year and a half ago.
Gotcha. Now, you've driven buses, tractors, sleepers, day cabs, specialty unit vehicles, I'm assuming. What's your favorite? Yep. What's your favorite thing to drive and your least favorite?
Probably Cascadia, Freightliner Cascadia Super Cab.
You're not the first to say that. We've had other drivers say that. I guess that's a nice ride.
Yeah, my brother-in-law works for a truck and trailer operation, and I'm picking up a truck tomorrow, and he told me, he saw my bill of lading, and he says, he told me what year the truck was and what color the truck was because their company sold it to him. So I said, okay, well, that's helpful information.
Wow.
But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about your favorite, the smoothest ride. Take us to the other direction.
All right. But before I do that, and you're talking about favorites, I want to give a shout out to Jessica Albert and say happy birthday, Jessica. Today, January 20th. And when you say favorite, she is a fantastic dispatcher at Norton Transport, and she has bailed me out many a times when I've been in a bind in places. And so I really appreciate her and all the support I get from all the people at Norton.
I got to tell you that Jim Fisher's speaking the truth on a couple of points there. Today is Jessica's birthday, January 20th. We know that. I don't know exactly how Jim knows that, but I'm guessing it's because of his strong relationship with Jessica. But there were many balloons and decorations. A couple of drivers got together, brought her a fruit basket, and Jessica is very appreciated inside and outside the building. And I got to tell you, Jim, you're not the first driver to say or sing the praises of Jessica, because she knows, like you were talking about, getting you out of a jam. She's really good at working many angles at one time. And let's talk about not just Jessica, but we've talked about it with other drivers about the importance of the relationship with the dispatcher. But lead it off with some of the highlights you've had with Jessica.
Well, the best thing about it is I know how extremely busy they are there. And I know that if I call and I don't get her directly, I know she's going to call me right back. I'll just send a text, call when you can. She'll text me back and say I'm in a meeting or I'm doing this, and I'm fine with that. Or if you need somebody else right away, if she's not even there, Casey, somebody else jumps right on it, and it's like they know exactly where you're at and what you need. And that's very helpful. In addition to the dispatcher, and well, you want me to elaborate on that? Some of the times I'll be going into a location where it's just almost impossible to get travel out of there. And I just give her a heads up and say, if you hear of anything that's coming up out of the so-and-so, talk to the account managers, whatever. I don't want to get stuck in this place and have to take a Greyhound bus 8 hours one direction. Mm. And it seems like I can always piece together something. I've never been stranded anywhere very long. So very helpful and just keeping me busy. As busy as I want to be, it's good. And gets me from point A to point B. And I travel. I pretty much live on the road. And when I want to come home to South Dakota, I can usually find a ride that's getting me fairly close. So
now, talking about that, getting home, what part of South Dakota do you live in?
I live in Sioux Falls.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not
on the east side of the state.
Yeah, it's not too hard to get into. I mean, you know this, everybody that works in travel, logistics, transport, the Dakotas, Idaho, Wyoming, tough places to get in and out of for what you're doing. But you were talking about you're able to find ways to get home. What are some of the ways you get home to South Dakota? Let's say your last drop's in Minnesota. What do you do to get home?
Well, number one, and I was going to kind of go into that because when we were talking about favorites, and I was going to elaborate on the importance of having not just a great relationship with your dispatcher, but you got to have people on your team. And got a lot of friends and family and team I stay at all over the country. And if I get anywhere within 150 miles of home, I've got a variety of people that know somebody that's coming this way. Or if I'm here and I need a ride to a truck in, say, southern Minnesota or Council Bluffs, Iowa, or Fargo, North Dakota, I usually know somebody that knows somebody that's going that direction, and I can hitch a ride. And so you got to be able to communicate on like that. So
that's a huge resource to have that. And I think you explained it very well there, but kind of reiterate the importance of that, particularly for people who live in remote areas, to arrange your own personal travel instead of relying on Uber, a cab, a flight. Well, a flight wouldn't really be germane because you're talking about 150 miles. But the importance not only of the convenience, but of the money saved for a Driveaway driver.
Yeah, and it's just got to the point where everything costs money and everything's expensive. So to try to utilize stuff that's already in motion makes a lot of sense to me. So logistically, I want to know that when I get to, let's say, Faribault, Minnesota last week, and I got to go 45 miles to Dodge Center, I can call a local dispatch guy because I couldn't get a lift out of there.
Right.
I thought, well, I can get a lift to go 42 miles. I couldn't get anybody that wanted to go out on the road that day. So I called this guy. Yeah, I'm up at the Minneapolis airport. I'll pick you up in an hour. So it works. But you got to have those resources and be able to call somebody that either been there and done that, or
you got to think outside the box.
Well, yeah, and it took me a while to mostly the company I worked for before, I was flying everywhere and on their dime. So that's always great. And I was always going to big cities. Well, now I'm going to all these little puddle places, and I'm like, I got to start figuring this out. So really riding a Greyhound bus, knowing their routes, is not a bad deal. Because for $30-$40, I can get where it might have cost me $250 for a flight. And I'll flip my friends $50 for coming and picking me up, or buy them dinner or something. And I kind of have a personal policy. If I stay at your house, I take you and your wife out to dinner, or whatever it is. And because people want, hey, stop and visit. And then I'm like, well, I'll stop and visit, but here's my deal.
Right.
Because everything costs money. So I think that's important. So there's an app called Rome to Rio. I don't know if everybody knows about that, but you get this app on your phone, and you can type in any city you want to go to and where you want to get there from. And it'll give you 3 or 4 options if you got to drive, fly, take a cab, take a bus, whatever it is. So you can figure out for yourself, okay, I'm in Yuma, Arizona. This has happened to me a couple times. So I got to Yuma, Arizona. Your only option is to fly out of there. Good luck getting a rental car. In the last 2 years, there just weren't any. So I rented a U-Haul truck,
right,
and drove to Phoenix, or I drove it to Ontario, California.
Cheaper than a rental.
Yeah, a one-way U-Haul for one day is like $82. A rental car is $160.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I figured it out, And the guy says, "What are you moving?" I said, "Well, I got my suitcase and my backpack." Okay.
Yeah. I'll throw them in the back.
Yeah. So, I could have hauled 40 people in the back, but, so.
That's another story there. I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of digging down into what you were talking about, $50 on a Greyhound versus $250 on a flight. I guess it comes down to time and money. That's a personal decision. Yep. But what you were talking about, where you've got, I'm picking up a lot of friends in that pocket, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, and in other places. How much has that saved you money and made your job more pleasant?
Time is money. And I think you got to be willing to pay the people that are doing the job. And, of course, I'd love to have a lot more money to spend on travel, but there's only so much profit margin in every vehicle we drive. I understand that. But I've also figured out that if I can get to an airport and get a $150 flight to get another vehicle that day and get in a couple 100 miles and turn it into a one-night trip versus a 2-night trip, well, I saved, another $100 on hotel and food. So you put that into the flight, and now all of a sudden you're driving another vehicle, making another $500.
Yeah, turn and burn.
Instead of sitting around in a hotel trying to figure out how I'm going to get from point A to point B and killing a half a day. So all my friends would tell you, it looks to them like I'm pretty much on vacation all the time, because I'm just in the right place at the right time usually. So it's usually nice and sunny where I'm at. I'm getting to be a fair weather driver here, and I grew up here, and I'm quite fed up with the snow stuff, but and the cold temperatures. And all my friends say, when you come home, it's nice, When you leave, it goes to 0 and snowy. How do you do that? And I just say, I watch the weather closer than anybody I know. And it's kind of funny. I've got a friend named Ryan, and Ryan runs a database operation for a large company, and he sits and looks at 3 screens all day long. So I told everybody, they go, well, how do you coordinate all this stuff? And I say, oh, I call 1-800-ASK-RYAN. And they go, what? And they say, what's that? So he tells me, don't give out my phone number. So that's not his actual number, right?
Right.
But I call him all the time, and I say, is this 1-800-ASK-RYAN? And he goes, I'm sorry, that service is no longer available. But he has saved me so many times. He's like, you better pull over. There's a tornado like a half hour ahead of you. If you keep going, you're going to be too close. Or he'll say, if you get by such and such a city by 4:15, you'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen there. And he watches radar, and he's good at reading the speed and where the direction. And I can't tell you how many times I've missed snow, hailstorms, tornadoes, all that stuff. I know I'm going to send a copy of this to Ryan. So a big shout out to a buddy that cares as much about me being successful out here as everybody else. So,
well, that's fantastic. And I'm kind of picking up that you're obviously a personable guy. You got a lot of friends, people that you can depend on, and I'm sure they can depend on you. And wanted to talk a little bit about, you were talking about a lot of your friends and family, said you're always on vacation. Well, that's what it looks like from the outside, but everyone who's been on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport, talks about planning. So you're on vacation because you've put that planning together with a fine-tooth comb.
Right. Yeah. I always have a pair of shorts with me and my swim goggles because I'm always aiming for a beach. Okay. And, the old, and I never really understood this whole puzzle thing, but it was, where's Waldo?
Oh, yeah.
I've got another friend that says, where's Waldo? And he'll send me a text, where's Waldo? Right. So my friends will see pictures of me up in the mountains with a buddy drinking coffee in a snowy chalet. And 2 days later, I'm walking on the beach with my daughter in Florida.
Man,
and they go, how do you do that?
You're having too much fun.
I know how to travel, and I know where I want to go. So, and, that's another part of the story. But I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. My wife passed away. Our goal was always to travel. So I'm just driving around in circles. I'm 66 years old, and people say, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I said, I don't know. I just keep driving around until I find out.
Oh, that's priceless right there. Now, do you do that a lot as far as you go to great scenic locations, take a couple pictures and upload them to your friends or on a social media format?
I don't do the social media thing just because to me, that's kind of too virtual. I like to be closer to the source than that. So
right.
I communicate that with family, friends and family, and they're they're traveling with me for the most part. So in my mind, in my heart. So that's why I do it that way. So,
yeah, it's more personal.
I try to keep it fun. Like a travel log. Like today I'm here and today I'm there. I kind of like to keep them guessing too.
Yeah, nobody knows but you and your dispatcher.
Well, Jessica's fantastic, but she has asked me, where are you? But if anything ever happens to me, I hope somebody calls her and says, where's Jim? Because she'll know.
Right. I mean, I know you speak the truth because Jessica is a solid resource inside and outside the building.
That's fantastic.
Now, I know we spoke before we got on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport, and you said, I think it was, you wanted to ease into the evening. It's your only day home. How do you plan your schedules as far as I'm going to be home for X amount of days, I'm going to be on the road for this amount of days? How do you break that down?
Well, I'm probably a lot different than everybody else, and that not everybody else, I know that, but every driver's life is unique to their own situation. And I try to make time for the people in my life. And I know when I need to, my mom's 94 years old and assisted living. I know when I need to come home and see her. I've got family here and there, and they all appreciate it and like it when I show up. So when I need a good spaghetti dinner, I end up at my sister's. When I want a good steak, I show up at my brother's.
You've got it figured out, man. I want to ride with you.
Yeah.
I want to ride with you.
Hey, you know, you want seafood, you go somewhere to the coast. And, you know, I'm just kind of rambling, but that's kind of my song too. I just running down the road trying to loosen my load. But another song is Don't Let the Sound of Your Own Wheels Drive You Crazy.
That's either Jackson Brown or the Eagles. Who is that?
Yeah, Eagles. We need to get back on people. I've got a dozen driver friends that we kind of communicate on a regular basis. Couple more than others, but periodically I get calls from random drivers that I don't even know that are referred. But yesterday, for example, I've got a friend that I started with 5 years ago. He's still working for another company. Mm-hmm. And I was coming out of Texas, and he called me and he says, I'm in New Jersey. He said, are you busy? And I said, I'm never too busy to talk to you. And he said, my GPS just went out. I'm trying to get into this location, and I've never come in this way. And this guy, to me, is like the safest, best driver out there that I know. And he said, my GPS just went down. I got to get into this delivery. So I pulled off on an exit. I got on my phone. I plotted the rest of the trip for him. I took screenshots of the 3 turns he had to make to get into this location. I sent it to him, and I walked him through it. And 10 minutes later, I was on the road, and he said, thank you. 2 hours later, I got a text from him, said, made delivery. I'm on my way to the airport. Thank you. So
that's got to feel good.
It does. And the reason I think I'm not just saying I do it, but we should all do that is you don't know when you're going to need help.
Right.
And what goes around comes around. I'll visit with truckers in rest areas and stuff, and they see I'm driving a bus or they see I'm driving a cabin chassis at the fuel pump. I just make small talk. You know, what if you break down and that guy is flying by you down the road? He's going to pull over and stop because you were nice enough to say, hey, that's a nice rig. Where are you going? That's all you got to say.
Yeah.
You know, just something small talk, show some interest in, wow, that's a big truck, or, you know, is that your truck? Just anything you can say to kind of compliment them on their load or, you know, the way they're doing their business or something like that. I'll tell you what, this is worth talking about is the atmosphere around these truck stops, because it's getting it's kind of pushy sometimes.
Okay.
Like you feel up, you don't pull your truck forward. I'll guarantee you there's going to be 4 or 5 guys over there cussing you out and telling, you know, Joe Blow, hey, get your truck out of there. You're done. You know, well, I got to go inside and get a drink. You can go inside and get a drink after you move your truck. I've seen it come to darn near fisticuffs.
Oh, so, my. You don't want to see that.
No, but some people are just that way. Hey, and when you were talking about being prepared, South Dakota in the last month has just been blasted. And I have a cousin that's a sheriff out in central South Dakota, kind of in the back country. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to him today about what his responsibilities were when they shut down the freeway.
Right.
They shut down the 90 between Sioux Falls and Rapid City, and Sioux Falls and the North Dakota border. And he said, these guys are idiots. They go on the back roads. They go on the back roads with these rigs and try to go down the 2-lane highways just because the freeway's closed.
Just to make delivery.
Well, if the freeway is closed, I'll guarantee you the 2-lane highway is worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and as soon as one truck jams, nobody can get by him.
Right.
So he's out in his county and the next county, and he told me he was driving his four-wheel drive vehicle down the road, and he stopped at the trucks, and he says, I'm going down the road 5 miles, and I'm turning around and coming back. You got 15 minutes to get your stuff together and either get out and get in my vehicle and go into town, or you're staying in your truck because nobody's going to come out here after I leave. And he said the guys that were getting out of these trucks and into his police vehicle to go into a town were wearing sandals and shorts and T-shirts and nowhere prepared to be going across that kind of weather and that road.
I mean, I'm trying to be nice, but that's just so stupid.
Well, and that, but there again, I want to give a shout out and a salute to all the first responders and the officers and the rescue guys that are out there that are pulling idiots off the road, truthfully. And now you're leaving your, $500,000 rig and load out there on the road because you didn't look at the weather map and say, you know what, maybe I better stay here until this thing blows by. I've missed many a storms. I've never been stuck, and I'm not going to ever get stuck.
Very good advice from Jim Fischer here on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. I was thinking about this. You were talking about CNG, and even in a non-CNG unit, we're not going to name names, but we had a driver driving to delivery. He was getting close. He didn't want to put $50 worth of fuel in there to get there and at least leave, an eighth to a quarter of a tank to the customer. So this guy ends up running it out of fuel. Then you got to get a fuel service delivery company bringing fuel to you, and that is outrageously expensive, as you know, Jim. What would you say as a piece of advice to that particular aspect about $50 is going to save you $800?
Well, that's pretty much a no-brainer. I don't know that I can say it any better than you, but I had a boss that said, I'll pay for all the fuel at the fuel pump, but I won't pay for any out on the road.
Right.
And so if you ever ran out of fuel, shame on you, because take the extra time to put in $50 for more than one reason. Okay. We're going to a customer. You're delivering a vehicle that maybe they've been waiting for 6 months now, or maybe they get a fleet. Maybe it's that guy that just gets one truck a year and he's using Norton Transport. He's using our company. And now the guy's going to show up and, I'm not going to be there on time because I ran out of fuel. Well, what's the customer going to think of Norton Transport at that point, or the driver for that point? And I have had people tell me, I don't ever want that guy to deliver a vehicle here again, for various reasons. They're the way they conduct themselves when they're in there. So treat the customer like you want to be treated and get the vehicle there. I did have one of my very first trips, I will say, to Dodge Center.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that runs it is fantastic. He told me, hey, I got a truck coming off the line every 45 minutes. That's a lot of opportunity for you guys. That means a truck needs to leave this parking lot every 45 minutes.
Was that Jim Cunningham?
No, that is Steve Earle.
Oh, yeah.
And wonderful guy. And that spoke a lot to me about, I was in business for 40 years as a business owner, so I understand what they're looking at. And I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And he says, you guys bring these trucks in here with some fuel in them. He says, I'm sick of people bringing trucks in here with no fuel. And I thought, well, all you got to do to be the winning dispatch company for this guy is bring the trucks in with a little fuel in and be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to jump through any hoops or anything like that. Just be on time and make a nice delivery, and then we'll get repeat business. But I asked Jessica, I said, this guy told me that there's been people bringing trucks in here with low fuel, and we're not going to get their business anymore if that continues, because this is the guy that decides who's getting that truck, right? So I think it's very important that we really count the cost when you think that you don't have time. And I just did it last night. I was going to Council Bluffs from Denton, and I put in $5 more than what I calculated I would need. And I got there, and the guy was just super happy. He says, oh, thanks. Oh, yeah, this is great.
That is some very, very good advice. Those are some great words to close it up on there from Jim Fischer. Jim, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate the wisdom you shared with us and the insight. Be careful and be safe out there.
Six Figure Trucker is brought to you by Norton Transport. Norton Transport is a drive-away trucking company that customers can rely on. It offers excellent independent contract driving opportunities to professional, courteous, and qualified drivers that can provide the kind of service we deliver. If you're interested in learning more about Norton or just want to subscribe to the show, check out 6-figuretrucker.com. That's 6-figuretrucker.com.